Hello, welcome back to Shak's Talks. I'm Shakti, and on this channel, I talk about UAPs, UFOs, consciousness, telepathy, remote viewing, and all kinds of other paranormal phenomena. I like to look at everything through the lens of Thomas Campbell's theory of everything. I think it's one of the best tools that we have available to us now to analyze the things that are coming forward, so you'll hear me talk about him a lot. I always post the links to everything that I discuss in these videos down in the description box below, and I would always appreciate if you like or subscribe or share the videos to help me grow my channel. So please do that now if you're able to. And there's a lot going on today. It is Monday, April 14th, 2025, and there's been some really interesting things coming forward in the UAP world. So we're going to go over some current events today. I'm going to talk about the new Tic Tac video footage that was released by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. I'm going to talk about Richard Dolan, UFO historian's comments on this topic. And we're also going to discuss the Q&A that Ross Coulthart did recently on News Nation, where he talks about the media's role in all of this. And I'm going to share a little bit about a Reiki training that I did this weekend because, as you know, if you've been with me on this channel, consciousness phenomena includes all kinds of different things. Energy healing and psychic abilities are in there, and it's something that I'm very interested in and something that I study. I did do a Reiki Level 1 and 2 training over 15 years ago. I think it was like maybe even 17 years ago or something, and it was a pretty informal setting, so it was cool to have that knowledge then, but I wanted to refresh things and get a new attunement, so I'm excited to talk about that because it also stirred up some ideas around like Diana Walsh-Pasulka's work and all the other people who are looking at this UAP phenomena through the lens of spiritual or religious experiences throughout history. And I think there is a little bit of a common thread here with the Reiki system in particular. So let's start with the Tic Tac footage. So 6 days ago on Weaponized, and the episode is linked below, Jeremy and George released this new footage, and the Tic Tac is one of the classes of UAP that we've now heard about from SKYWATCHER, but it's also something that we've all been hearing about since 2004. 2019 was another big moment for the Tic Tac, and then 2023 is when the most recent video footage is from. All of this stuff happened off the California coast, which is a UFO hotspot in Southern California. And this footage was recorded on February 15th, 2023 by the US Navy. So this was the USS Jackson. It's a high-speed ship designed for shallow waters and also deals with countermeasures against mines. So it is a Navy ship. This was in the same general area where the famous 2004 Tic Tac was seen, in the same region, and this was captured on thermal imagery, but also by witnesses. So the video footage shows the footage of one of these Tic Tacs, but there were 4 that were observed by witnesses during this sighting, and they were seen both visually and detected on radar. So we're only seeing the footage that was released of one of them, but apparently the others were also detected on radar, I believe. And they were all showing anomalous behavior. They were self-illuminated, they were coordinated and seemed to be communicating with each other in some way, and they all disappeared simultaneously. So these are from the accounts that the witnesses shared. And in Richard Dolan's commentary on this, he says, a quote from his video is, a profound continuation of this pattern. So basically he's saying this is a really important piece of evidence to add to this whole big pile of data that we have, this ongoing awareness that There's something really tangible going on here, and this is very different from just like orbs or lights in the sky or things that seem very far away. Like it's very much happening right here, right off the coast, coming up out of the water. So the one Tic Tac did come up out of the water, according to the witnesses, although you can't see that in the video footage that was released. And so that's also showing that they have transmedium capabilities. And again, for anyone who's a little bit newer to this, transmedium means that they can operate just seamlessly and easily in air, water, and space. Strangely, they've also been seen going in and out of mountains, and not just in and out of openings in mountains, but actually through the earth, as if they're just kind of phasing through or something. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on with these transmedium capabilities in different accounts of these sightings. But with this one, it was coming up out of the water. And Richard Dolan also makes some really interesting points about why this case should demand our attention. He says, for one thing, the Tic Tac design is a consistent technological approach that's been going on for decades now. So this counters the idea that some people put forth that like this is just experimental craft, man-made, being tested for brief periods of time before being replaced. It doesn't seem to be the case because we're seeing something consistent for quite some time now. He also brings up the transmedium capabilities, these propulsion systems that appear to be able to manipulate fundamental physical forces, and also the issue around the containment of this information. So this incident was not necessarily taken to Arrow, and there seems to be an ongoing compartmentalization by the military of these sightings, which is really unfortunate and has been going on since the late 1940s. And there are still significant numbers of these encounters that are being kind of suppressed. I just saw a person on TikTok today, a Navy personnel, who was talking about how much stuff they see, you know, how many UAP, how consistent it is. So beyond just these reports that we're getting, there's a lot of individuals speaking up about these things. They're not necessarily whistleblowers who are testifying in front of Congress, but they are people talking about their experiences for what it's worth. And I find that quite interesting because, as you know, anecdotal data or evidence is the beginning point for all of us being able to study this phenomena. It usually starts with a story or an account or an experience, and then we kind of take it from there and analyze it. One second. Okay, so these are still notes from Richard Dolan's video, which is linked below. He says these are representations of an ongoing reality that continues to unfold. These things are operating freely in military areas. So again, this is an important part of why this is coming forward in a big way in the last few years, is because of the potential threat, or, you know, obviously it's just something we should be keeping an eye on if these craft are just doing whatever they want in sensitive areas, and we cannot really meet them where they're at because they're so advanced. So I mean, we should be a little bit on alert about that. So it feels like pretty crazy when the military kind of suppresses just talking about this. Maybe they don't want to be perceived as not having power. They don't want to look bad. They don't want to expose their weaknesses. All of these things make sense based on the perspective that they're holding. But when are we going to drop it and just get on with figuring out what's going on in an open and transparent way? And then Dolan also makes the point that the evidence, this is a quote, the evidence increasingly points toward a non-human origin for at least some portion of this phenomena. And again, it's interesting that he says like some portion, because that does make me think again of the different classifications that are coming forward now, and I'm going to go over those again here. I did on episode 51, we talked about SKYWATCHER's latest update. And I just want to remind us all that these classes that are now coming out as a result of Jacob Barber's work with SKYWATCHER, they're not new. They're not brand new, at least. You know, a lot of people have been considering these various classifications and calling them different things. And it's nice to have it kind of like repackaged and cleaned up for us, refreshed. You know, we're going to see this again and again. Every time somebody starts to study this, they want to make it their own, and that's fine. Honestly, it's not a problem. It's just worth noting that this is not new and it's not coming out of nowhere. But it is directly from what they're doing. This is their observation and their categorization system, for what it's worth. So we have the Tetra, which is class 1. These things are kind of like, I think they're mostly black and a little bit triangular looking, and they tumble and they flicker, and sometimes they've been seen up to 22 at a time, so they tend to do these flocks or formations. The Tic Tac is class 2. That's what we're talking about today. And these come in groups of 2 to 3, often flying very erratically. Obviously, in this recent footage, we are seeing 4 of them together. You can see the way it flies and moves on the video, which is pretty interesting because it's just unlike anything else you've ever seen. And yes, these things are very difficult to capture their images. So it's like, you know, this thing, the recent footage was shot on this thermal sensing system at night out at sea. It's a little bit grainy. You know, you're not going to see like an up close and personal look at this thing, but you can watch its behavior and its movement. And that's very interesting. Then you have class 3, the Blob. Now this is what a lot of people, let's see. Oh, okay. I was wrong. I thought the blobs were part of the orbs, but I'm reading my notes again and I want to clarify. It looks like the blob is its own category, a pulsing, vibrating cloud of some kind. And then the beam class is where we have the orbs, according to Jacob Barber's system, his taxonomy. These are only seen in infrared, and they sometimes come in conjunction with the Tetra class. So that's funny. I got confused about that. So the beam class is where they have the orbs listed under, because, you know, there's the 9 classes, and then we're going to have more categories underneath each of those as well. And they only see the orbs in infrared, but as we know, many people are seeing what they call orbs with the naked eye, and Chris Bledsoe is one of the most famous, I guess you could say, contactees. He's an experiencer, and he sees orbs on a consistent basis and videos them and invites people out to see them with him. So lots of eyewitnesses are able to see this phenomena when it comes into the sky. And then you have the Manta Ray class 5, which tumbles and rotates. This is the smooth black kind of triangular looking thing, but with like a rounded kind of look to it, really shaped like a manta ray. The Bright Star class 6 is the crystal, vibrating crystal in the sky, which sounds very interesting. I haven't heard a whole lot about that one. They have class 7 is the Jellyfish. This is what they consider like more of an interdimensional being that they're seeing. It appears to be like a creature or an animal. It looks a lot like an ocean jellyfish. The lights go up and down the tendrils, and it has that mushroom cap kind of top to it. And then there's an egg class 9, the egg-shaped UAP. So that's class 9. It's an emerging class, and there's not a ton of data yet, but there have been some significant sightings of that egg very recently. And I believe we'll hear more about that from SKYWATCHER soon. So that's a little bit about the new Tic Tac footage. My eyes are watering really bad today because of the allergies, so I apologize. I have to stop and drink tea and blink a little bit extra. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about some other videos that have come out recently. So I mentioned Ross Coulthart's Q&A on News Nation, which I've also linked below, like I always do. Um, so the part I wanted to mention here is just he comments a lot on current events and everything that's going on in this UAP stuff, but towards the end of this Q&A, he talks about the media and how we're at this really major turning point and so much is happening, and there's going to be a time when we're all looking back saying, what was going on with these major news outlets and why weren't they covering this? Like, why don't they care? What are they thinking? I mean, we've all been asking ourselves this for a while in the UFO world. And there's lots of, stories about why and ideas about why. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because what's happening right now is they're kind of becoming obsolete. And this is because of the internet and the way that we now receive our information, and new generations who are no longer interested in reading a newspaper, for better or for worse. I think it's fine. It's all just what's happening. And so Russ Coulthart, as a journalist, is talking about how the big newspapers, they no longer have the resources that they used to be able to basically pay journalists to do really in-depth work. They used to be able to spend 6 months working on a story, and now, the money is going out of that business and it's going online, and there's not really an institutional media online yet that can actually replace that old institution. So we're in a weird moment right now. He mentions how like CBS, NBC, and ABC are all slowly going broke, dwindling into obscurity, in his words. And he talks about his kids and just how, like, his wife and him will sit down to watch the evening news, to get spoon fed the evening news between advertisements. And the kids will just laugh at that. And it's so funny because the same thing is true in my family, where my sisters and I will just be like, oh my God, why do they still watch the news? Like, we get it other ways. And this is happening more and more. So it's interesting to observe how even before this shift, the mainstream news outlets were failing to cover this important topic in a serious way. Just a really bad history of them making light of it, being very silly about it. And then a few big breakthroughs with serious articles like the 2017 article that Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean broke. And so there are some big significant moments that have really helped to push all this forward, but we're still seeing a lack of genuine coverage when it comes to all that's going on today. We had the drones recently. That was a whole mess in the media, and they really failed us when it came to covering that. And now we're just, we're not seeing anything really about this new Tic Tac footage, at least not yet. So let's see what happens. It's only mid-April right now. And then I did want to chat a little bit about Stephen Greer, because Jesse Michels recently did an interview with Stephen Greer on American Alchemy. And I haven't covered him a lot on this channel because, to be honest, I don't have chemistry with his personality. I don't like listening to him very much. And I think that's okay. It doesn't mean anything necessarily. He's not my cup of tea. And actually a lot of people feel that way in the UFO world, because I think because he has a really big personality, he has a certain way of expressing things that feels limiting, like it's my way or nothing at all, and I'll tell you how it is, and I know everything. He's got his own whole like movement, and he's kind of keeps to himself in his own bubble in a way. So those are some of the reasons why it's hard to take him seriously. He tends to be a little bit over the top, but Jesse makes the point that even though he's difficult, he is an important figure in disclosure. He's been at this for a very long time. He is a real, like, person, a real intelligent doctor who ended up leaving his career as an ER doctor to work in disclosure. He's had a lot of interesting contacts over the years. So he's been in important rooms with important people when it comes to this stuff. He's done a lot of briefings for the White House and things like that. And he's actually responsible for a lot of the whistleblowers who have come forward in recent years. So for all of those reasons, it's worth sitting down and listening to what he has to say. So Jesse Michels does this like 3 hour long interview with him. It goes off in all kinds of different directions, but I pulled out a couple key notes for us to consider here. So one of Greer's big things is hidden tech. He's very convinced that there is sort of this, you know, some people call it like a shadow government, or let's see, what else did they call it in here? I think I took some notes on that. Basically, this kind of power system that operates at a global level that kind of is over all of the different world governments or operates outside of all the rules. He kind of alludes to the fact that there's this power system in place and they have this knowledge and this tech and they're keeping it from everyone. So that's one of his big things, is that there's hidden tech that would liberate us all, and it has to do with electromagnetic effects, and it would create energy independence. It would be global. It would take out the grid, you know. And Jesse kind of pushes back on that and is like, I'm not sure. Like, I know there's some interesting scientific breakthroughs that I've heard about, but I just don't know that, like, I believe that we really have that at that level yet. And Greer's like, yes, we absolutely do. So that's one thing that he's talking about on this interview. And he said we could have had free energy for the world decades and decades ago. So he talks about that. He goes into a lot of other kind of like tangents around this sort of conspiracy, I suppose. He claims that he's had like around 760 whistleblowers come to him because he does these, he puts himself out there as a place to come, like, bring your information to me. He holds these conferences, these conventions, you know. So he does have a lot of important contacts, and a lot of people are kind of encouraged to go forward in the process because of their connecting to him. But then a lot of times they break off from him because he does have, you know, what some might consider a difficult personality. So it's hard to say what's really going on there. But I think since Jesse decided to interview him, we'll just talk a little bit more about his views. And he is responsible for the CE5 meditation protocol, which a lot of people in the field were skeptical about, but obviously now it's a huge topic with psionics coming to the surface. And so it's giving a lot more credibility to that CE5 meditation. So that also makes me want to think twice about Greer and his methods. I'm like, okay, he's obviously onto something. And I think it's okay to not take in every single thing that he says, you know, and make it like this is the truth and I believe it all. But who knows, maybe in the end we will find out that everything he's talking about is true and he just has like a really intense way of expressing it. So I'm keeping an open mind here. He talks about, he just is very extreme in how he discusses these things. For example, he says alien abductions are human programs, covert 100%. Now, this is the guy who says there are no bad ETs, which is a hard one to swallow when you look at all of the evidence around the doctors and scientists who have worked with abductees and the accounts that those abductees have shared. It's hard to believe that there's no bad ETs when you look at that big body of evidence. But he claims that that's because those are all human programs. Now, I don't know, I don't really necessarily believe that, but I could imagine a reality where there's a mix of stuff going on, and maybe there are some covert programs that are meant to trick people into thinking that they're having an alien abduction. It just seems a little far-fetched, to be honest. And I don't know where the evidence is to support that theory, but maybe it's because I haven't been digging into Greer's work. Now, he's almost 70, by the way, so he's been at this for a long time now. He says that in terms of the UAP, we know that there are basically 3 different categories according to him. So I wanted to compare this to the 9 classifications that are coming forward now through Jake Barber's work. So in Greer's viewpoint, there are the NHI vehicles, so the ET craft, basically. There are man-made objects that are out there based on the reverse engineering programs that have been ongoing since maybe the 40s, maybe earlier according to some people, maybe later according to others, but for many years now, perhaps around 80 years, there's been these secret programs, and as a result of all of that, humans have been able to create some pretty anomalous craft of our own, according to Greer and to some others as well. So he states that there are the ET vehicles, the man-made ones, and then there are these extra dimensional beings. So he is on the same page as Jacob Barber when it comes to that, because Barber is also observing something that appears to be more like a creature or being in the sky, and that they are calling that one of the classes of UAP. Greer gets really mad about everything that, you know, comes out with these big, you know, like Arrow and NASA and major news outlets and everyone else. Whenever anybody comes out and says, we know there's something there, but we don't know how they're doing it or what they're doing, he says that's a total lie. They totally know. That part, maybe. I could kind of see that's possible, based on all of the evidence that's been circulating around that suggests that there are lots of programs that have been secret, that have been studying this stuff for a long time. It's like they probably do know a lot more than they're letting on. That's more likely than not based on the evidence. And he talks about the correlation between the ETs and the atomic bombs. As we know, that's an ongoing connection. Basically, that they seem to show that they came in mass because when we detonated the first atomic bomb, it's disrupting their systems. It has an impact on their craft, and so it alerted them to the fact that we're at this new stage in development as a species. And he also says we should not be bringing down their craft to reverse engineer it, because that's an act of war. But he also makes the point that, like, we started doing that in 1945 and we would have been done for if the ETs were actually hostile, because obviously they're much more advanced than us in their technology. So it's not really a fair fight. Like, if they wanted to win, they could. And so therefore they must be good is his theory. And so, yeah, that's some interesting stuff in recent events. And then, you know, I've been putting together this slideshow because I just got my brand new computer. I'm still recording on my phone right now because I'm not done yet, but I'm going to give you a little sneak peek by telling you what's going to be in this presentation that I'm hoping to figure out how to record. So it's on UFOs, UAP, and NHI, non-human intelligence. What are we dealing with? And I'm going to talk about some leading theories. We're going to talk about Jacques Vallée, his ideas about folklore as it relates to the phenomena, Diana Walsh Pasulka and her book Encounters, Tom Campbell's theory of everything. We're going to talk about, like, what does it mean, though, when these visions or apparitions actually seem tangible and they cross over into physical matter reality? Things like markings on the body, or, sorry, my allergies are flaring up again. Maybe sneeze. Physical implants, burns, UAP that show up on radar and sensors, and more. We are going to look at the nuts and bolts side of things, the crash retrievals, whistleblower and UAP science, the Leslie Kane article. And, you know, while I'm on this slide, I'm looking at, I mentioned her 2 books, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, but also her other book is Surviving Death. And that was something that someone asked about in the recent Q&A with Ross Coulthart. Like, is there a connection between UAP and the afterlife? And his short answer was yes. I haven't read her book Surviving Death yet, but you know, I'm deep into my consciousness studies, and I do believe that once we all get on the same page about the functions of consciousness, it'll be a no-brainer that we survive death. To me, it just seems like it's not even a question anymore, but it's funny to feel that way, because the truth is we really don't know. We're going to talk about the hearing, the congressional hearing from 2026, and how important that was, and more witnesses and whistleblowers that have come forward since that time. So I am delighted to be a part of this because, you know, I've been studying this stuff for a while. Jet, what's going on? Get up here. Come here. He's coughing up a fur ball. Oh my goodness. Okay. Dog interruptions are happening again. I apologize. I think he just wants to be included. He's always trying to make some noise right when I'm recording. Okay, anyway. What I was saying is I'm just so excited that this whole disclosure movement, if you want to call it that, but this UAP topic is just continuing to unfold in front of our eyes. More and more people are catching up to the history and to all of the important aspects of this phenomena. I think the more we all learn about this and think about it, the more we're creating a collective understanding that will help us to accelerate our path of truth, basically, of getting the truth out there. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it in my little way, and I'm really grateful that you're here taking the time to listen to my episodes. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, I'm going to talk about my Reiki next, but if you're new to the channel, you know, you can go back to the very beginning. These episodes are all numbered. You can play them through my playlists and watch them in order to catch up on the history, at least some major events. There's always so much more that I haven't yet covered, so I will continue to be going backward in time as we also simultaneously move forward together with the current events and things that are unfolding today. But we'll go back and we'll re-examine different things that have happened throughout history. We will always talk about spirituality and consciousness because these things are inextricable from one another. And that's what brings me to this Reiki training. So I did my Reiki Level I certification, and it was interesting because I had a really good teacher. She had a really grounded perspective. She was able to share a lot of the history of Reiki that I wasn't totally familiar with. I think there's some misconceptions because different people have shared information about it that maybe isn't accurate. So what I learned from this teacher is that so Reiki, Rei means God's wisdom or the higher power, and Ki is the life force energy, kind of like prana or chi, or I think there's lots of other names for these energies. And so the word means spiritually guided life force energy. And there are 3 main teachers in this lineage of Reiki, and this lineage only goes back about 100 years or so. But there are precursors to this in Japanese culture. And, you know, as you learn about this, it's just like, you know, I always look at things through the lens of truth is one, paths are many, because that's what I grew up with in my yoga community. And even though, you know, there are things about that upbringing that were challenges for me, I rebelled against it at a certain point in life. It's not perfect. You know, the guru wasn't perfect. He made big mistakes. He let a lot of people down, as is the case with so many gurus. I actually think we're in a post-guru moment for the collective evolution, which is really exciting and wonderful. Gurus, they've all played their place. Um, they've done what they needed to do to move us to where we are, and I'm grateful for all that they've all shared, because every controversial guru has actually also been able to share some really important pieces of information and knowledge and techniques and tools that have benefited so many people. So, you know, it's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think it's okay to move on from idolizing individuals or thinking of someone as better than yourself. I think that's part of what gurus have been teaching since the beginning anyway. They've always said, eventually you're going to let go of me and you're just going to be one with the teachings and I don't even matter, you know? And that's pretty accurate. You know, they're there to be a vessel for work that is passed down through a lineage. So in Reiki, this lineage that I was learning about, it starts with Master Usui. And the reason I just wanted to, I'm not going to share everything from this, obviously. I don't want to give away someone else's teaching, but I just wanted to mention that this master had his own experience when he received the Reiki in the first place. And part of that had to do with like a beam of light coming down. I'm trying to find the exact place where they talk about this in the manual if I can. Let's see. Okay. So it was something along the lines of like he needed to kind of get close to death to like move into the next level of understanding or something like that on his spiritual path. And so he was working with a Zen teacher and he was seeking further guidance. And in February 1922, he went to Mount Karama to fast and meditate until he found his way into that other world, basically. And there was a waterfall up there. Part of the meditation practices of people that went there was letting that water fall on them. That was part of it. And he was getting very weak. It was now March 1922, and at midnight of the 21st day, a powerful light suddenly entered his mind through the top of his head, and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. This caused him to fall unconscious. So the story goes on, and basically this was like his big special moment where he got this big download. But I just thought it was interesting, because I'm so obsessed with UAP. When I heard that, I was thinking like, that's so much like a lot of the different spiritual encounters that saints and sages throughout time across the world and various cultures have had, these beams of light coming down. And it's also something that people experience with UAP. So it just made me wonder again if there might be a correlation here or, some connection, because the other thing about this is I recently got re-interested in Reiki because of a Reiki practitioner talking about her experience with what she considers to be positive ETs who are attracted to her work with Reiki and helping to channel through her. And I was like, ooh, that's a good reminder to refresh my Reiki attunements. So right now I am not certified to work on other people. With level 1, you can work on yourself, you can work on your food, your plants, and your pets is what the teacher recommends, but mostly it's about some energy cleansing techniques and we learned some shielding and some grounding, and then we learned these different hand positions, and it feels really good. It feels really nice. And like, if you know me and you've been following this channel, even though I am very skeptical of toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing and woo-woo that I think takes things too far, I'm also deeply spiritual, and I 100% know that there are real things that go on that are beyond our current understanding, and that does include energy work. And I like to look at it through Tom Campbell's lens, which is simply that we can use our free will and our intent to modify future probabilities. So by engaging in reality, with the little piece that we have, the little piece of power we have, because we can't control everything. We're not going to heal cancer every time we go to do a healing, or there's never going to be a consistent outcome when we do these types of things, because of the fact that there are other factors at play that we have no control over. You know, the larger consciousness system, the universe or God, whatever you want to call it, there's a divine plan that goes beyond any of our understanding and way beyond our levels of power and agency. There are random chaos factors, there are physical matter reality constraints that we are working with, and if you look deeper into the theory, there are also non-physical matter reality, which is kind of the bubble just beyond us, where some call the spirit realm. There are things coming in from that level of reality that are influencing and affecting the outcomes of this reality. So what we do have is we have a little piece of power in all of this, and that is our free will and our ability to use our intention to modify the random draw that the system does to create the probable future. So whatever's going to happen next, if it's about healing, it's like, let's say I'm working on myself and I have some kind of disease. It's like I have my genetic predisposition, I have the environmental factors, and whatever that universal consciousness level of it is, those things are all at play. And then I have my own self. And if I am wallowing in negativity and self-harming behaviors and negative self-talk and things like that, then I'm using my free will to decrease the probability of healing happening. But if I do these special protocols and practices, learn techniques, get these energy lineages passed down to me, through me, and I start to apply all of that, what I'm doing is I'm creating a very powerful intent. These practices are just one tool, and you don't have to do a certain lineage. You can just do it with your mind. You can do it with your intention, with your heart, with your, just with your thoughts. So I think there's power in these practices, but they're not the end all be all. And I don't think any of them should be taken too seriously. And I think it's very important that we all recognize that many humans throughout history have come to these various practices on their own, through their own experiences with nature or meditation, or just with themselves, in their own imaginations. There's all kinds of different hands-on healing, remote healing. I do a different kind of energy work also that I've really been loving, and I'm actually feeling more drawn to that even than the Reiki, but I just wanted to supplement that with a little bit of extra something, which is why I went and got my attunement. So I'll keep you posted on how it all develops and what else I learn. I may do the Reiki 2 training as well, I'm not sure yet, but overall I just want to remind us all that we are all here to learn and grow, and we all have free will, and we can do whatever we want with it. So if you feel interested in or drawn to any kind of energy techniques or healing techniques, I think it's worth exploring just for your own experience. You're collecting data, and you can use that to make your own conclusions about what all this stuff means and how effective it can be or not be, and what I recommend. And I hesitate to even recommend anything, but I'll just say, based on my own experience, I find it very important not to get too caught up in any one way, because we live in capitalism and everyone is trying to make money here. You're going to have this unfortunate systematization, is that the word I'm looking for? You know what I mean. You're going to see people monetizing these things, which is totally fine because everyone's got to make a living and do stuff, and it's cool that people can do what they love and make money. But to tap into it on the purest, deepest level, just, remember that you're the great power. It's you, your choice, your agency, your free will, and you know what's going on inside of you, and you are the only one that can actually create that clear and pure intent. And there are going to be infinite ways of doing that. So these systems, there's ancient traditions, they deserve respect, they deserve for us to be interested in them and to learn about them and try them. There's brand new systems. They seem wacky and weird and silly sometimes and really out there, but sometimes they're just as valid. And then there's going to be the like snake oil category of a bunch of nonsense and people taking things too far and, you know, taking these really spiritual concepts and actually twisting them just enough to tap into that marketing level of reality to get us excited and get us sucked in. But that's where you have to be careful, because sometimes they're selling you an unrealistic dream, and it's really actually quite damaging to your progress, in my opinion. So I don't know. It's good to experiment and have fun, but also just always listen to yourself, you know? Come back to your own center. And if it feels weird, maybe it's not quite right for you. So that's a little bit about my Reiki stuff. I hope that the new UAP news was exciting for you and interesting. You know, this stuff is still just rolling in. I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm looking forward to the next SKYWATCHER release. And as always, the links are below. We have the Tic Tac episode of Weaponized. We have the Ross Coulthart Q&A, Stephen Greer on American Alchemy, and Richard Dolan's comments on the new Tic Tac footage. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. Like the video, share it, and I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.